5. The Watts Riots, 1965. Los Angeles was a powder keg for many years, and on the 21st of August, Marquette Fry, black, was pulled over for drunk driving. He, his brother, and their mother finally began fighting the two white officers who arrested them. The police had to dispel crowds throwing bottles and rocks. 6 days later, central LA was a burning war zone. 30,000 blacks rioted, looted, set fires, and beat whites at random. 34 were killed, 268 buildings razed, and $40 million done in damages. Number 4. Nationwide rioting after Martin Luther King Jr.'s death in 1968. King was assassinated on the 4th of April in Memphis, and rioting began that evening in cities around the nation, 110 in all by the end. Washington, D.C. was the worst hit, with looting, brawls, and widespread arson for 5 days. 12 people were killed, over 6,000 arrested, 1,200 buildings razed, and 13,600 military troops forced to guard the city, the largest military occupation of any American city since the Civil War. Number 3.
The 1967 Detroit Riot. In late July 1967, 82 Detroit residents were celebrating the return of friends who had served in Vietnam at an unlicensed establishment. When police raided the building in the early hours of the morning, the crowd turned on them. The police initially fled, and the party-going group evolved into a mob which began looting nearby buildings and burning cars. Out of control, the National Guard and even the 82nd Airborne Division were called in to help and often became engaged in shootouts with rioters. After 5 days, the estimated 10,000 rioters had been dispersed, with 43 people killed, over 7,000 arrested, and 3,000 buildings looted or burned. 1968 Holy Week Uprising. After the April 4th assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, communities across the United States rose up in protest. In some cities like Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and Chicago, large-scale riots broke out as bands numbering in the thousands vented their anger and frustration. Federal soldiers were called in to back up the local police forces, and despite the scale of the riots, deaths were kept at a few dozen, which was relatively low when compared to the other riots in the 1960s America. The damage was extensive, however. Over several days of protests and riots, thousands of businesses and homes were looted and burned down, with thousands of people injured.